Good evening and welcome to the WART special presentation of People of Beckinfield with Charles T. Fulbritton. Tonight's guest, Dr. Kylie Spencer.
Good evening, people of Beckinfield. I have today a very special guest. And this is someone that I know you've all seen on Beckinfield, and she saw our recent interview with Dr. Brandon Ryder, and was so interested in some of the things that we had to say that she called up the studio and asked me if she could come on for an interview. And I, of course, said yes, because after all, we could use one more psychologist to come in. I mean, as a doctor and a psychologist, it would be great to get a second opinion on some of the things that are going on here at Beckinfield. So, Dr. Spencer.
Actually, Charles, I'm not that kind of doctor. I'm a surgeon.
Okay, well that's not the point, is it? The point is that a doctor is a doctor. I mean, after all, how far removed could you really be? So, let's talk a little bit about what it was exactly that drew you to get on the phone and call my office so that we could have you here today.
Well, I thought that your Dr. Ryder interview was very interesting, to say the least. Definitely his answers in regards to some of your questions. I mean, the first thing that caught my attention was his reaction when you mentioned about what was contained in that video that he obviously wanted. And he seemed to not have very much knowledge all of a sudden of what was happening in that video. And then the second thing that really caught my attention was his reaction to your questions regarding Gabriel.
Yes. Well, I can say at least one thing. At least you're talking, which is more than we could say for Dr. Ryder, and so I think this is going to be a good interview. So let's talk a little bit about the issue of Gabriel. Give me, in your own words, what is it about Gabriel that comes to mind that you find interesting?
I think he's a very fascinating person. I think there's so many layers to him that we just don't understand and don't know. And you know, from a personal aspect, I sympathize with him. I see a person who has a history that we don't know.
Before you continue, if I could interject just for a minute, I'd like to just give you my personal take on Mr. Michaels. My personal feeling is that this faker is sitting in a basement somewhere with a bunch of high-end hacking gear, pushing the buttons of the people of Beckinfield. Now, I'm sorry, but that's just my personal take on the subject.
And of course, Charles, you know, I'm a very open-minded person. I respect other people's opinions. Unfortunately, I'd have to disagree with you on that.
And why is that?
I feel very strongly of Gabriel's humanness.
Well, I'm not saying he's not human. In fact, I'm sure he is.
Oh, okay. But you're thinking he's more of a mystical hocus-pocus type person?
I don't think he's mystical or hocus-pocus. I think he's a guy with a mask on, sitting somewhere in his mother's house, pulling a number on everybody.
See, that's where our opinions differ. I feel that Gabriel knows things, and he has answers for people in this town, and I don't know how he knows, but he knows.
Very mysterious. Well, let me ask you this. When he does his little 1.5 minute or so episodes, could you give me one specifically that gives you the impression that he has answers of some kind that might help you? And then, to follow up, what answers is it that you're looking for?
Well, to be perfectly honest, Charles, I think many of Gabriel's messages to Beckinfield can be looked at in very different ways. I think that he has answers, but you have to look past the exact words and look to the deeper meaning. And in several of his videos, I found deeper meaning for my own personal situations in particular. And personally, I want to meet with him, and I want to get more answers. And I think he has answers for me in regards to the current situation that many in Beckinfield know I'm currently dealing with trying to find Dr. Matthews.
Well, I want to meet with him too, but probably not for the same reasons you do. But put that aside for just a moment. Why don't you explain the Dr. Matthews situation? Because I have seen a few of your videos where you have mentioned him, and I believe you even spoke to him once on the phone. So what is the whole issue with Dr. Matthews?
Unfortunately, we don't have all of the details yet. I'm definitely working on it. He was taken. We know that for sure.
He was taken?
Yes, he was kidnapped the night of the theater fire.
Hold the phone just a minute. You're telling me that your Dr. Matthews, who is your boyfriend,
Yes.
was kidnapped? Kidnapped by who? Gabriel?
No, certainly not. I don't believe for a second that Gabriel had anything to do with it. I think somehow, some way, he knows something in regards to it. He's pointed me in the right direction so far to this point. Clues I've gotten as to where to start. For example, when I went to Los Angeles, Gabriel was the one that pointed me to that. And I think he could point me further. We do know some of the hired hands that were involved in his kidnapping. But
Well, would you like to name names at this point?
most people in Beckinfield who have seen the videos know that Max Smith, the uncle to Scarlett Johnson, has been involved. There has definitely been evidence that he was linked to the disappearance of Luke Williams. It's a very difficult process.
This is quite a yarn you're spinning here. Kidnappings, disappearances, and you think that this Gabriel character has the answer somehow. What would give you that impression?
I think from the answers he's given me so far, it's become
Can you
evident.
be a little more specific?
Through his videos, there's been definite messages, words of wisdom, you could almost say, guidance. And I have had my own incidences where his voice has spoken to me. I don't know how he necessarily gets to the places that he delivers these messages, but when you wake up in the middle of the night and you hear his voice telling you where to go and what to do, it kind of kicks it to reality.
We may have a two-parter here. This is getting pretty serious now, and I have to say that I was not prepared for the interview to go this long. So let me just take a break. And I have some other questions that I'd like to address, and let's just leave it at that. Charles T. Fulbritton here. We'll be right back.
You've been watching People of Beckinfield with Charles T. Fulbritton. We'll be back in a moment.